Welcome to the DSEF. The Direct Selling Executives Forum was created to be a place where real direct selling executives and vendors in the space can come out and share solutions to challenges that face us all in the marketplace. Our guest today is going to be unpacking a topic and sharing their raw thoughts for you to learn from. All right, let's go meet our guest. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our next episode of the Direct Selling Executives Forum's Open Forum and Women in Leadership series. You're in for a total treat today. As the team was putting together this week's series, the subject was leading a direct sales organization in a digital world. And as we looked at our members and we looked at which team members we wanted to invite to come out, it just became apparent that we said, we want to have our guest be Nevena. And if you haven't met Nevena Srebreva yet, I'm so excited to introduce you to her today. I'm going to bring her out in just a moment. I know you can see her here on the stream, but just so for those of you who haven't met Nevena before, Nevena and I actually live very close to each other geographically. We're both here in Chicagoland because Nevena is Chief Field and International Officer at Pampered Chef. Okay, she's over 2 decades of field leadership. She is forever young. So you would never guess 20 plus years in the space, right? And she has led expansion and growth strategies in new and existing markets for industry leaders such as Avon, Vorwerk, which is the Thermomix folks, right? She's very passionate about creating opportunities and bringing solutions that make a real difference in people's lives. Nevena, thank you so much for joining us today. We're excited to have you on.
Ben, it's such an honor to be with you today. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
It's going to be fun. You know, these questions come out of the DSEF. And for those of you that are new to the DSEF or just listening on Spotify, you know, it is a free invite-only group of direct selling executives who are sharing real thoughts and what's going on in the world right now. And so as we talk about these topics like, man, leading a direct sales organization in digital world, these are some of your questions from the forum that we're bringing to Nevena. So first one from the forum. Many party plan companies have struggled with creating places for their field reps to transact in our digital world, right? COVID was a big trigger to a lot of that. Pampered Chef has recently launched Table and has even won awards for that work in the space. So to unpack that thought, what prompted you and the team to launch Table in a world where so many tools already exist? I mean, there's a lot of off-the-shelf stuff, and yet you guys built Table. So what was that like?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There are many off-the-shelf solutions, but not necessarily tailored to our party plan model. So Ben, like so many industries, our virtual business had been growing steadily over the years. And during the pandemic, that only amplified our growth. And so as many others, our consultants have been using solutions and are still actually using a variety of solutions, social platforms and digital tools to engage their customers and hosts. But these platforms, as we well know, they are created primarily for social interaction. So not necessarily supporting the party experience that we seek to provide. So Table was created, and we have an incredible experience innovation team who worked on the launch and still on the evolution of the platform. But Table was created with the vision to do exactly that, to provide our consultants with their own place to party, a place which is specifically designed to meet the needs of our consultants and also to create a great party experience that hosts and guests want to be a part of. So it was built for our consultants, but a very important part of the build was that it was a build in partnership with them. So our consultants played an integral role in developing that table experience and continue to play an integral role, because ultimately we want to serve up a solution that creates that connection, that fun, educational, and social interaction that you get in a live party, but virtually. And that's not an easy thing to do, as we know. And another thing that it serves is the platform allows our consultants to leverage from party outlines that we curate for them, but also gives them flexibility that they seek to have so that they can integrate their own personal voice into that party experience. And in fact, many of our consultants also do curate their own party outlines. And so the platform allows them to do that. And what I'm very excited about, it has also the opportunity for them to do live demos or to integrate events that we curate for them. So we have every Tuesday right now, Test Kitchen Live events, so live from our home office.
Addison, Illinois. There you
Addison,
go.
Illinois. We demonstrate products. We speak about what is new or exciting for the month, and our consultants can plug and play that into their party experience. And the last thing that is probably the most important thing, platform allows us to generate great insights, right? To really get under the hood, to see not only what's the content that our consultants use, but what's the content that engages their guests the most. And of course, as any platform, we know that we need to continuously improve. So by having access to that data, which we otherwise don't have when they use other alternative solutions or social media platforms, it allows us to continue to evolve that experience, test, measure, learn, and improve. So very excited. We launched it in 2021, and we're very excited with the progress that we continue to make on that platform.
Nevena, you had a series of 4 solid gold nuggets that I want the other executives to hear that were really important in the process you and the team went through in table. There's a whole framework we could design just to talk about this. The first part you laid out was intention. When you're shopping for technology and solutions and any part of your business, you have to understand, why was this created? What was the intention around this? Because many times there are specific needs for your business that will only be met when a platform was developed with the intention of your industry, your needs in there. You also included so that you got maximum buy-in. And this is an important note that was echoed on an earlier episode. We actually had one of Nevena's peers at Pampered Chef. We had Kylie, Pampered Chef, talk about how to maximize adoption of technology. And we touched on table briefly in that conversation as well weeks ago on our episodes. And so if you're on Spotify or YouTube, go up 6-7 episodes on the feed after you finish today's and get Nevena's coworker Kylie's take on frameworks for maximizing adoption. But she mentioned the same partnership you just spoke about as a key to them feeling a personal sense of ownership, so that later these leaders lead with table and get adoption amongst the group. And I've found that to be true across tons of marketing systems and software projects over the last decade plus in my world, of saying, if we can get the leaders involved on the content categories or the style of content, so that little bits of ownership, even if it's not into software design, but it's in the content that's inside of the software, can make a huge difference. You also touched on this idea that there's these preset party plans for a party, and that's an element, the outline. That's modeling behavior, gang. You need to be modeling behavior. It's not enough to just have training videos to win in the digital world today and hope that your people are going to follow what's in the training video. How do you create tools that model appropriate behavior? Great question. You should be writing down as you listen to Nevena continue today, and we get to the additional questions. And the last gold nugget, there was a fourth one you had that was so good. We like to call that feedback loops. You call it insights. You use the word, hey, insights. And yeah, you got to look at, how are you making decisions for the future with what you deploy? Are you still living like it's 1996 and you're getting on the phone and calling top field reps to know what to do better in your business? Or are you using technology to give you feedback loops to make better decisions so that you can make your solutions better and Kaizen and continuously improve? So, man, awesome stuff, Nevena. That's really, really good. So pull those.
Well, recap, Ben. Well, great recap. And I would just add the customization piece, which I think is so important in every business model. And I would say a big part of it is, how do you create simple plug and play solutions for your field, but also understanding that there is a personality aspect of it, and we're a part of a network marketing business, and so much is reliant on that consultant's own personality to shine through. So making sure that you're creating, even within those solutions, the opportunity for that personalization for consultants, I think, is an important factor for them as well.
And that's a really good point. Like, they're not robots quacking the same praise, right? They come, and their audience doesn't respond to them for that. Their audience is very unique. You can look at people across different, just different childhood. They grew up differently, or they grew up in a different community. Like they speak to one another differently. I don't even understand some of the things my nephews in New York say these days from growing up in Chicago. They use a different language than I do when my kids are playing together with their cousins. So I'm amazed at how you do need to have a way for them to communicate the way they will. A question two from the forum lends itself right into where we just went. The question from the forum is, hey, for executives that are working to create a framework for digital strategy and referral marketing. So kind of zooming out and saying, here's what we need to create a framework for how we're going to do digital and referral marketing. What factors would you encourage them to consider? I mean, we've talked about feedback loops, modeling behavior, partnership with the field, your right intention. We just talked about personalization. What other factors would you encourage them to think about?
Great question. And I love frameworks, but fortunately, there's no one size fits all solution. But there's definitely some key things to consider. And I would start off with understanding that each brand delivers upon a promise. And we all have unique sales models and systems. So it's very important when we think about these digital strategies and tools, how do we choose them and how do we build the strategies that best position our sales force to deliver upon that promise and grow their reach? But as a generic framework, I would say a few things. First, and you said it in your recap, you have to clearly define the objective of your digital strategy. What is it that you want to achieve? Is it acquiring new customers, increasing brand awareness, boosting sales? Like, what is the primary goal? And then, of course, it's understanding and knowing your target audience, demographics, preferences, behaviors, tailoring your approach, and of course, messaging appropriately. And I think there is a lot of studies and data around your generational approach and what messages resonate accordingly. So keeping that in mind. And of course, with any strategy we are in direct selling, so incentives play a big role in that. So determining what are the incentives that you offer, what motivates, whether it's your consumer or consultant base, so you can design attractive and rewarding experiences for them that meet their needs and preferences. Of course, defining channel. There's so many ways in which you can target that digital strategy, but the channel will play a key factor in what you will put in place, including what systems you will use to track and monitor. Again, important part of it is how will you determine success? How will you be able to monitor performance, measure the effectiveness in order to make needed changes? And I know this all sounds very generic, which I hate very generic statements, but I hope it's still useful, keeping it upfront and prominent. So promotional plans, sometimes we lose sight of any digital strategy requires continuous spreading of awareness, encouragement of participation. And I would say another piece, and it falls within any solution or tool, it's don't disregard the experience. Oftentimes, that's where the big pitfalls lie. So whatever digital strategy you're putting or referral strategy in place, the user experience is going to be a make or break. For example, if it's a referral marketing, is it easy for the consumer to refer others? Are there clear instructions? Is there a seamless personalized referral link or submission process? And I can't state this enough. I think we in Pampered Chef have a very kind of committed culture of test, measure, learn, and improve. So with any strategy, I think it's fundamentally important to continuously test and optimize. So that's why tracking is so important, so that you can track these key metrics, close the feedback loop, as you said, in order to make adjustments based on these insights.
And that I'm so happy you went there, because that's right where my brain was going. I had just last night, I had 3 clients from Salt Lake City, Utah, sitting with me at dinner down at Harry Carey's here in Chicago. And we were literally talking about how many times when you set your goal, even you've designed this experience and your core offer of what it's going to feel like, when you start picking those metrics and tracking, and this is where that framework can be so helpful, is expand the pipeline of what you're tracking. This is something we've
Yeah.
really bad at traditionally in direct sales for a very long time. I think many of us put together these plans and campaigns and these thoughts and these visions and this money and this content, and we spend it all. And then at the end of the day, we say, well, how did we do? And we look at transactions, enrollments, sales, subscriptions, all transactional indicators. And we know that the field did webinars or handed out a sample of product or demoed, and then they texted and they called people and they did things to get people there. And how much of this stuff did we track? And
Yeah.
you're tracking table events hosted.
Yeah.
That's more than most people in the industry. Most people in the industry are not tracking meetings hosted, right? And you guys are tracking. It's a big leading indicator to your world. And the more and more you can expand the way you collect data from all these things that happen before a sale is created, the more you can optimize. And that was CF published that back in January of this year. So that report's been a part of this organization all year. And we just keep coming back to that, hearing what you just said, Nevena, just edified it again. It's like, you got to expand what you're searching for.
I think it's a great tip, Ben, because I think to your point, so much in what we do could be measured or kind of forecasted based on having a clear set of leading indicators, and continuing to monitor and understand the correlation is essential. So excellent point there. Yeah, fully agree.
So next in the forum, Nevena, beyond your work at Pampered Chef, you've also previously served at both Avon and Vorwerk. So these are some very different cultures and communities. What would you say are the pitfalls of implementing and gaining adoption on a digital strategy that you'd warn some of these other executives we think about? We talked about frameworks and strategies and optimism and all the good things. What should we stay away from? Like, where am I going to get my foot stuck? Like, what is that? Yeah.
And I would so want to say that there are no pitfalls, or that they're few and far between, but the reality of it is that there are far too many. So it's a great question, because I think one thing is clear: the speed of technological advancement right now is far greater than the speed of field adoption. And I think this is the biggest challenge for all of us to solve for. And the bigger an organization is, the slower the adoption, because you have to override so many existing systems and established practices. So change management becomes far much more critical. And I think another thing is, for a long period of time, the problem with the more established direct selling companies was that resistant to change. There was an over-reliance on the model because we're a people business. And so what role does technology play? Because you can override so much with the power of personal relationships. But we know that's not the case anymore. But now I think I'm seeing that in some companies are swinging the pendulum in the other direction. And so producing a kind of a too much too soon challenge, right? Complete overhaul of systems or business processes. And I think the challenge there is, how do you not paralyze your sales organization, right? By bringing too many diverse solutions that can drive further complexity and slower the adoption. And it's not only the solutions that we bring to the table for our consultants. There's, to your point, so many diverse solutions that are out there readily available, that your sales organizations naturally start thinking about how do they adopt. So I think there's now even the challenge of competing, with other solutions. So it's not only the solutions that you create, but are those solutions competitive to the solutions that your sales force naturally starts to leverage? So coming back to the question of what are the main pitfalls, as I said, there are many, but if I had to say what are some of the key ones, in my opinion, it comes down to the following things. So first of all, again, it always starts with the same thing: clear goals and priorities. And it's not that we don't see opportunities. I think the challenge for all executives is that everywhere we turn, we see opportunity for growth or problems that we want to fix. So it's important to have a clear understanding on the key problem or opportunity that we're going after through our digital strategy, how that aligns with overall business objectives and our model, and not be tempted to fix everything at once, or to find those universal solutions that are going to say, transform all processes internally. So
Hearing to measure the
I
value
think
of
we
the
probably
opportunity before saying yeah,
exactly,
not just grabbing
exactly.
every opportunity equally. Got it.
And
Okay.
also understanding that there are so many advantages to our channel, the power of our sales force, but there's a clear limitation of how many things your field can absorb at any point of time. So I think that's the first thing, is having clear strategy, clear goal, and prioritization there is essential. Otherwise, the change enablement may be too big. And so the second thing I would say is lack of testing and proof of concept or field engagement. So you mentioned this, and Kylie, a critical member of our team, of our experience innovation team, has a clear focus on partnering with the field in the design. And we definitely in table use that approach of what's minimum viable product. And oftentimes with any solution that we bring to the market, we start with a minimum viable product first, testing it with a small group before full rollout. And I would say that's an important thing, because it can save you from many of the pitfalls otherwise can face by going without that testing phase, without the field engagement towards a full rollout. So it minimizes financial risk, the disruption of the field, as you uncover inevitably things that could and should be improved in order for that to successfully be deployed. Biggest one being, it obviously most of the time shows if there's anything in that user experience piece, right, that can create friction, whether it's for your sales force in utilizing the tool, or on the consumer side.
Sure.
And so I think that is a critical part, and oftentimes that's when we miss the opportunity to really get the field. And the last one I would say is adoption plan. So oftentimes, and I've seen this, incredible, very rigorous launch plans. And we spend a lot of time of thinking of how are we going to communicate and roll out, and what is everything that we're going to put in place, and training to engage, to excite our field. And sometimes we miss the mark on, is there just as rigorous of an adoption plan in place prior to rollout? So really thinking through what are going to be those training needs, what's going to be the recognition strategy, as well as having a dedicated team post-launch that still operates in that same way to problem solve, to evolve the strategy, to address the needs. So oftentimes is that launch and abandon pitfall that we can face.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Again. So team, hear that. First note, value, understanding that each opportunity you're faced with as an executive, I mean, we get that at a high level, are not a different value, but working on your skills to discern, right? What is the highest value thing I say right now? You look at Steve Jobs talks about his success at Apple wasn't because they said yes to everything. It was because they said no to almost everything, right? And it's Nevena, that's so good. And I've seen that testing piece ring so true. Many times I say that we can't see what's in front of our face, so if you're watching on the YouTube feed or on the live stream, you can see us visually. If you're on Spotify, you're like, what are they doing? But many times you work on a project so close that you're not seeing those user experience issues that a regular person would. And so having a consumer go through your process, having a one of your coaches or stylists or consultants or members go run and use the tool, and just watching them do it, watching them in their own behavior, you can find points of friction and solve them before you go. Now, you won't get to 100%, right? You'll want to go to market before you're at 100%, to Nevena's note, but there is truth in that 80-20 stuff of, if you can get that 80% user experience rocking, and okay, those are just little 20% items we can work on later, you can get to market. And adoption is not a one-time event. I love that you said that, Nevena. You're like, it's not just the kickoff of it. It's the what happens after the kickoff. And we have to remember, so many other things in life, it's not a one-time event. Marriage is not a one-time event, right? You choose to get married and then you stay married, right? Being a parent is not a one-time event. You have kids and then you choose to parent every day long. Joining a direct selling company is not a one-time event. You join and then you show up each day to build your business. Well, guess what? Leading your field, new programs. Every time you
Yeah.
create anything, it's now alive in your
Yeah.
ecosystem. It's living. And so you have to say,
Yeah.
what does the life of this thing look like?
Yeah.
Because it's not a one-time event. So the big note I heard as I'm listening to Nevena Unpack
Yeah.
Adoption Gang is you got to write down, it's not a one-time event. It's not. Stop treating it like a one-time event. This thing now lives in your ecosystem. It's either healthy or it's sick. All right.
Mm.
So how is it going to thrive? Is it getting the inputs and the outputs it needs? Right. Think of your kids. Are they eating food? Are they right? You know, you have to take your kid to the hospital when they're not using the bathroom, the outputs, right? Up first trigger, up they're sick, take them to the hospital. Inputs and outputs.
Yeah.
Your systems are
Yeah.
either healthy or not. That's so good, Nevena. That's a
And
real
then I would add to that, and it's probably a helpful way to view it. A great implementation plan will drive at best testing of your strategy.
yep.
So doing a good job of communicating, sharing what the advantages are will drive higher percent trial of the field. Then I would say user experience is critical to drive usage, right? Any friction will stop usage. Not will not fully get you into adoption. In order to get adoption, that means that your holistic strategy that you've put in place, including creating compelling proposition for the consumer, if it's a consumer tool that the consultant uses to engage consumers, if you are driving the value through that tool, then you have an opportunity to gain that adoption. So it's a multi-pronged. You have to have the right communication, the right WIFM to create a desire for trial. Then at minimum, you have to have the right user experience and avoid any friction in order to start to gain traction enough for usage. And then your solution needs to deliver on that value, needs
Yeah.
to help
Gotta
that
deliver on the promise.
consultant generate the customer growth, the sales growth, or whatever that solution is targeting to deliver. And then you really have a viable adoption curve. And I think we're sometimes in expecting that just a great implementation plan can deliver on those three things, puts us in a disadvantage point. Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah. We need a good offer first because the marketplace votes with their money, right? Hey, that's why
Mhm.
Pampered Chef has the pizza cutter. I mean, everybody has a pizza stone or pizza cutter. Like, you got to have great products, right? And speaking to what Nevada just shared, we did an awesome series on product first marketing, of this idea of leading with the right offer, the right product, right target. We had Al Di Leonardo from Cutco on. We had Alejandro from Sanki. We was a number of those on our episode. That was last year. Do check it in the channel, gang. Product leading with a product first. It fits to get the right offer to your audience, then with your adoption. So that's a very good point, Nevena, to bring that up. That
And
would
for anybody that doesn't have a Pampered Chef stoneware product, now is the month to make sure that you get
yeah,
stoneware. We have great stoneware offers this month. Had to plug that in, Ben. What can I
perfect.
do?
Perfect. So, as we wrap up to the last question, we always ask a fun one. So as we wrap up, if you could wave a magic wand and change one behavior in the field you lead today, what would that behavior be?
Well, I will answer as long as you can give me that magic wand, because I would
Okay.
love to wait. Well, it's interesting because today's conversation is all around adoption. And so I would say if I had a magic wand, and I would basically convert an activity to activity, right? To a
Show up
sales
wand.
organization. Yes, it's
We all show
taking
up.
it's taking action. It's the first step, right? Taking action is the fundamental behavior that we try to drive with our sales force every day, because that's the way to get our consultants closer to their desired results. And with anything, it's the first step. Be the longest journey, as we all know, the saying starts with the first step. So how do we encourage our consultants to take action is at the forefront of everything that we do. And because today you've been asking me a lot about frameworks, I heard this many years ago, and I love it as a simple framework for our industry that you can use to measure probability of the field taking action. And it's a very simple framework. It's basically asking yourself two questions, or asking your consultants these two questions whenever you put something new in front of them. So if your consultants are the probability of them saying yes to them is higher, then you're on the right track. So the question is, the first, can I do this? Right? Anything you put in front of your consultant, the first thing that they're probably going to be struggling with is responding to the question, well, can I do it? Do I have the skills, knowledge? Do I have the support in place to do what I'm being asked to do? And then the second question is, and I know you know this, Ben, is it worth it? Do I want to do it? Right? Will me taking action create the desired outcome, right? Or the benefit that I expect to see. So a very simple framework, and anything that we put in front of our consultants is asking ourselves these two questions. Have we created a fruitful environment for our consultants to be able to say, yes, I can do it? And have we created a clear incentive or compelling proposition for them to see the benefits of doing it? So to be able to say, yes, it's worth it. And I think it's a great formula for adoption too, because it's certainly answering yes to both of these would mean that you're on the right path to drive action, and probably on the right path to drive adoption.
We use a similar framework. There's a business influencer in Michigan named Gino Whitman, who wrote the book Traction. We've shared Traction on the DSEF podcast a number of times. He has a framework called GWC that's very similar to what you just said. He asks, do they get it? Do they understand what it is? Do they want it? Is it worth it? And do they have the capacity to do it? So that's the can I do it, right? The capacity. So GWC, do I get it, want it, and have the capacity to do it? He says anything that.
I like that. I think I'm going to add this third question for sure in the framework, specifically when we talk about our solutions and tools. I think that's a critical extra question to ask. So I love that.
Yeah, because you got the want it and the capacity to do it. And sometimes we even struggle with get it. Do they even understand it? And hey, that's an important part. So I love that you unpack that. Nevena, this was just a total treat to have you on today. Thank you so much for being on the show. For any of you who are through Chicagoland, if you haven't yet toured down at Pampered Chef and seen their facility, it's just gorgeous. Just west of the O'Hare Airport, if you're in town, it's a wonderful place to be. And yes, check out their stoneware if you're watching on replay. Holidays are coming up, and yes, of course, we all like good food on the holidays. So,
and thank you for all that you and the team do to share those insights and learnings. And I love tuning in. So it was an honor to be with you on this podcast today. So thank you for all you do.
You got it. My treat. It was a total pleasure. For those of you that are new to the DSEF and are looking for more, if you're watching this on one of the feeds on LinkedIn or as a one-off on YouTube, do subscribe. Check out the LinkedIn group. It's the most active place to go to get to the forum and submit your own questions. It's Direct Selling Executives Forum on LinkedIn to request an invite, or go to directsellingexitivesforum.com. It was a total treat to have you here today. Have an amazing week. We'll talk with you soon. Bye for now. If you haven't yet joined the DSEF group on LinkedIn, go to directsellingexitivesforum.com or go on LinkedIn and search for Direct Selling Executive Forum to apply. The group is free and is an invite-only community of direct selling executives by direct selling executives.